Hi, it's Tenma here, and it's time for things I liked in seasons I didn't like. And now it's time for a bit of an unpopular opinion, and that is, I did not like Dino Thunder. I am sorry. This is a pretty well-liked season. It does have a good share of its detractors. I am one of them. But for the most part, I really didn't like it. And a lot of it came into execution of a lot of really good ideas. It just kind of fell flat to me. And it's like you had a lot of good things, but you didn't really follow through with them very well. And I will talk about those good things. And I think I'm going to start out with the characters. The characters are one of the things I really like about the season, and I find them particularly very memorable and very interesting. And that is, they were the three core ones, which the three core Rangers, Connor, Ethan, and Kira were very interesting, and they grew throughout the series too. And first off, they looked and talked like teenagers at the time. I know because I was a teenager at the time I watched this. I was in my junior year when Dino Thunder came out. And God, there's a reason why I caked my eyeliner a bit for this. It's to talk about this and put on, the black nail polishes. Oh my God, I dressed a lot like Kira did. Oh my gosh, the punk rock look was coming back and I liked it and I went with it. And oh my goodness, that's where I learned how to put on eyeliner like an idiot. And oh my God, even when I rewatched this in college, I even looked back at it going, oh my God, I had clothing that she was wearing on the show. So I had clothing. So that was kind of funny. But not only that, they talked like it. They got a lot of the slang that was being used at the time decently correct. Again, they're not going to get it fully correct because, you're like, well, what do teenagers sound like? I'm actually at that point. I look at Tumblr sometimes. I'm like, what the crap are you talking about with your fifis? Feels? Whatever. Lows. Actually saying lulz out loud now is an actual slang term. It's like, just laugh. But, they got most of it right. Little significantly, less cussing, because this is something for age 7. For instance, in the first episode, when they met Principal Randall, who later turns out to be Elsa, and Kira goes, someone needs a hug. No, she sounds like someone needs a hug, and I'm like, if she were actually someone in my age group at the time, she would have probably said, someone needs to get laid. 'Cause that's what you say when you're a teenager. And no, they did the writing correctly. And this goes into something that I said before with my issue with current gen, and they're kind of writing Stepford characters, people that talk like they're people, but they're not. It's like, where are the dynamics and how are these people interacting when there should be opposing opposites and all that. And with Dino Thunder, you have that, because these are 3 people that don't normally interact together. Cassidy points this out to Devin, when they're doing the reporter Snoopy thing around, and Cassidy goes into a reporter mode, and she's like, hey, look, what the heck is, Connor, King of the Jocks, doing, talking to Ethan, King of the Nerds, and, and it really goes into how those 2 characters interact with each other, too. They just butt heads. You have, like, Ethan constantly making fun of Connor's, at the very beginning, he's constantly making fun of, like, Connor's intelligence and everything. Meanwhile, Connor's, making fun of the fact that, Ethan, you're a loser with a capital N, and I'm an awesome ladies' man. And Kara's like, I don't have enough time for your sexist shit. Now, she didn't really flick him off. She probably would have. I have time for your sexist shit. And, you know, oh my god, they interacted so well together. And then, you know, they grew to actually be friends with each other. Because you're saving the world together. Well, you're really saving Reeside / the world. But, you know, you're heroes of your town, your secret identity and all that. You come together. And they grow because of that. You know, they grow to like each other. But even then, you know, they still make snippy comments every now and then. So they feel like a group of friends that were a bunch of people that were not really all together in the first place. And unlike a lot of seasons where you do have the mixed match, you know, the nerd and the jock and the goth kid and all that, they normally don't get along. They normally like, oh, they get along with each other. We're all the bestest of friends. Dino Thunder, they don't start out like that. And while they end up like that, it's kind of interesting that they also feel like that they're still from different worlds. It's more like when you go to college as opposed to high school. High school, I actually came from a very cliquey high school too. Somebody in where I went to community college actually went, oh man, you went to John Hughes High School. So it felt like a John Hughes movie. But, you know, when you get to college, a lot of the clique stuff melt away. And it was kind of interesting that when they came back, and almost as if they grew up out of the whole, you know, once you secure in your identity and all that, they grew up. And speaking of that, going into this, I really liked, Anton Mercer. I don't like Mesogog as much. Mesogog was, he looks menacing. Honestly, I really like that, and that's going into another thing I'm going to talk about later. But he looks menacing, but most of the time he was ineffective, I found, when I rewatched Dino Thunder when I got older. I found he was ineffective, and most of what he did was torture his, minions. And they all dressed like S&M people anyway, and Elsa really liked the pain thing. And you had Mesogog, who talked like he was orgasming all the time. You know, moving his hands and doing this. You know. Menacing looking guy, but kind of mad on him as a villain. But the internal struggle with Anton Mercer inside of him, you know, living as Mesogog was interesting. Because Anton Mercer, yeah, they did the whole, evil billionaire thing with him. But, you know, he still was a human. You know, he worked with Tommy in the past and everything. He loved his son. Now, he didn't really get the whole art talent for his son. He loved his son. And but it was a really interesting, it was an existential thing to see him struggle with that demon inside of him. And essentially, it's like, here is this demon inside of you that is, you know, eating away at your humanity, and you're trying to struggle to pull away from it. And Mesogog feels the same because he doesn't want that human part. And that's where Mesogog's story was interesting, was with Anton Mercer and that existential crisis. And that also goes to one of my favorite more evil rangers, and that is Trent. Trent had a very similar story when he got the White Dino power. And this was out of the necessity for the footage. Popular Killer was dickbag. He was a dickbag. So, you know, you had a guy that was a huge dickbag and evil from the Sentai footage, and you had to translate that to a Power Ranger, which almost all Power Rangers are good, right? Kind of, sort of. That's another topic entirely, but you know, but even the ones that are, you know, sort of on the edge of being anti-hero, they still have good qualities in them. So, you know, they did the whole evil ranger thing where he's brainwashed and turned evil, but they actually, you know, because of that footage, they were forced to do the same struggle. And so it was a different struggle, you know, to see the power basically eating at him, and, you know, he'd be sweating and everything. And, you know, at times it would completely take over him, and then he beat it for a while, and you're like, yeah, you did it, and then it took back over him, and it took fully over him. You know, it was the opposite of what happened with his father. You know, Mezikog actually pulled away out of Anton, whereas Trent, at one point, really fully became the White Dino Ranger. And it wasn't just that evilness was infused inside of him. And of course he later beats it, and near the very end, and they all defeat Mezikog, and it's all happy. But for the most part, Trent's struggle with that power, especially because he was, his character, you know, they went through this character. His character was very sensitive. And overall, you know, very introverted, but a good person. And here he was struggling with this problem. And then another thing on the characters I really liked was Tommy, and how Tommy was older. And originally they were, you know, not only did Tommy come back, but originally they written in for Kat to come back, and I think as Tommy's wife, and which was gonna be hell to pay because of that little powder keg known as the Tommy Kim ship war, particularly because everyone really still holds on to Tommy and Kim forever. But due to some budget things going on with the budget, they couldn't bring Catherine Sutherland in, and so they wound up more fulfilling that war with Haley. And I actually think this was one thing that did the show more service, and that the people you went to high school with are not going to necessarily be the people you live your adult life with. And you see that with Tommy. Tommy kind of keeps in touch with the old Rangers, but for the most part, he's separated from them. His friends, his best friend is Haley. His, you know, other, you know, research partner and friend was, you know, Antoine Mercer. And then there was Smithy. That one kind of fell to the wayside, but then, you know, there was Smithy, who was, you know, Zeltrax, who, you know, became Zeltrax and all that. But, you know, he went on to meet new people in college, researching and all that. And it makes sense in a lot of ways that he and Kat kind of did fall apart. You know, he went off, you know, the end of Turbo, he went off to be a race car driver. Kat went off to London. Freaking London, to be a dancer. And, you know, while long distance relationships can work, this is before the internet and Skype. Not to mention that, you know, they were teenagers just gotten out of high school. You're not fully adult yet. And you're gonna, you know, because you're experiencing new things and everything, you're more likely to fall apart. And it would make sense that they fell apart. And it would make sense that Tommy would make new friends, and that Kat would make new friends, and that, you know, Adam would make new friends, and Tanya would make new friends, and, you know, everyone would make new friends out of the old Rangers. You know, Billy's off making friends in Aquatar. You know, everyone went off to do something separate. You know, Kimberly, you know, went off to Florida and found someone else. So these things are actual things that happen. And, you know, as a kid, looking at Dino Thunder when I was a teenager, I would have liked that they would have had more of the old Rangers involved. I think it would have been interesting. Be like, oh yeah, Tommy's still in touch with them. But now, as someone who's, you know, 10 years from now, looking back on it, I'm like, I only talked to 2 people I went to high school with. And even then, you know, it's more of I'm Facebook friends with them. So that's not really a big connection. And I really, you know, as an adult, I really appreciate the fact that, you know, you see Tommy and he's not with the Rangers anymore. They grew apart from each other. And while, you know, I still think that they talk to each other and they're still friends, they, you know, they found new people in their lives, and that's who they live their lives with now.